Venezuela has oil, which is why, by the way, the whole failure of socialism is so incredible, right? If socialism was going to work somewhere, it was going to be in the country where the oil gave you money literally for free from the ground. And it didn't work in the country with the largest oil reserves in the planet. Imagine in other places.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Michele Tafoya podcast. Please subscribe. Just click that button wherever you're listening or watching. We'd love to have you with us for every single episode. So do subscribe. Leave a rating if you want. Even if you hate it, leave a rating. I'm fine with that. Daniel DiMartino grew up in Venezuela and now is in the United States on a work visa. He was here on a student visa and remains on a work visa. He's studying economics at Columbia University, which is kind of funny. In a way, you're going to hear why. This guy grew up in socialism. He saw his country, Venezuela, go from one of the richest on the planet to what it is now, which is a narco state. It's tragic, and he sees some parallels here in the United States. You're going to want to hear from him. He is a fantastic guest. He is next. Daniel, welcome. It's so good to have you, and I want to jump right in because I think people will be most interested to hear about you. And of course, then we'll get into your concerns about America. You were born in Venezuela. When did you come to America?
9 years ago in 2016.
2016. Yeah. So that was a big election year.
Yeah,
and that was at the time, Daniel, when, the candidate, Donald Trump, was talking very tough on immigration. What were your thoughts about coming to America that particular year?
Well, I had just finished high school in Venezuela, and I was very excited to come to the U.S. because I got a full ride scholarship to study in Indiana. That's how I came. And so I moved to Indiana. I had never been to the Midwest. I had been to the U.S. before, but to like Miami, the touristy area is very different, but much better. I really enjoyed it. Indiana is a wonderful place with amazing people. And I didn't really have any thoughts against Trump. I actually was pretty happy about him because I've always been a conservative since I was young, because I saw the impact of socialism in Venezuela. And the only person in that race that was speaking out for free enterprise and against socialism was Trump. So that I like that. I like the, foreign policy stance against the Venezuelan regime, which obviously is the cause of why people leave Venezuela in the first place. And then I kind of got introduced to the entire cultural set of issues, right? Because in Venezuela, we talked about economics, and of course, I oppose socialism, but we never talked about social issues.
Why not?
Well, because I kind of assumed, I'm Catholic. I kind of assumed everybody was like against abortion, or, I had never heard of trans people, of anything like that. And then I get to the U.S. and it's like, whoa, what is going on here?
Yeah, what is going on? And it's still going on. Well, now you've been here 9 years. Do you have citizenship?
No, not yet.
So
it takes a long time, but yeah.
It does take a long time. So how are you able to work for the Manhattan Institute, do all the things that you do in your current citizenship journey?
Because I'm on a work visa. And
you're still on a work visa. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So doing it the legal way. Are you trying to become a citizen? You are, right?
Yes. It's going to take many years because the legal system is very backed up. And
yes.
It's part of why I work on this issue. I've learned a lot through my own journey. Yeah. And also because when I was working in my university, the job I got was very useful in a way because I was a receptionist, but a receptionist at the Office of International Affairs that did the entire visa process for students, for professors, and for other visitors.
I just want to point out that you just said you learned a lot from an entry-level job at this particular office. You were a receptionist. And I think it's really important that people understand how much you can learn, how much one can learn from any level of work if you're willing to absorb it. Let me just get back to Venezuela. Is your family still there? You know, after nearly 30 years on the sidelines, doing the NFL, the Olympics, NBA, you name it, I've learned that real expertise comes from consistency, not guesswork. And that's why I'm excited to team up with Sports Corner Daily. Their free daily picks keep cashing with analysis so clear, even a casual fan can cash in. And with the NFL and college football and all the big matchups coming up right around the corner, this is the best time to get in on the action. My listeners get 2 expert picks delivered free every single day. Every single day, free. Just text the word BETS, BETS, to 844-759-0281 or visit sportsdailypick.com to sign up in seconds. No cost, no risk, just smart winning insight. Again, text the word BETS, BETS, to 844-759-0281 or go to sportsdailypick.com. Sign up. Don't wait. Kick off the season on the winning side. Let me just get back to Venezuela. Is your family still there?
No, thankfully, no. So my family left after I did. They're living now in Spain and Italy.
Okay.
So the part of my backstory is that my grandparents had immigrated to Venezuela in the 50s from Spain and from Italy.
Okay.
So that's why my last name is DiMartino. My dad's side of the family is Italian, and my mom's side of the family is from Spain.
And they immigrated to Venezuela. Why at that time? What was Venezuela like, and why were they attracted to that?
Because, Spain had a civil war in the 30s, right before World War II, and then Franco took over. And even though the communists lost, Franco's first half of the regime was very isolationist, was very restrictive in terms of economics, and Spain was a very poor country. And Italy, was destroyed by World War II. So Venezuela was actually a pretty great place. In part, speak Spanish, so much more similar to Italian, and also the same language my mom's side of the family spoke. And it was the 4th richest country in the world by 1960. So really, Venezuela was the place to be. And my grandparents were not a rarity. There were people from all over the world that immigrated to Venezuela, especially from Italy, Spain, from Portugal, Christians from Syria and from Lebanon. I know so many people from that area, people from Colombia and other parts of Latin America who went there, millions of Colombians actually, crossed the border to work. And so Venezuela was a land of opportunity, which is why I care so much about America, right? Because I see it as also a great land of opportunity, and that a lot of people don't quite understand that those things are fragile and not guaranteed.
So when you were born in Venezuela and before you left for college, what was your experience of the country like? And then we'll get into how it changed. But what did you experience as a kid?
Yeah, well, what I experienced was slow decline at first and then really fast. So with slow, I mean, suddenly you wouldn't see your favorite thing in the grocery store anymore. Your favorite yogurt, your favorite cereal, disappears, the brand. So businesses closing down. Inflation kept going up. And when I say inflation kept going up, the lowest inflation rate during Chavez might have been like 30% a year, which is more than the U.S. has had in a year throughout the 250 years of history. And that was low. So that, suddenly there was no milk in the grocery store for many days. Then, there was a blackout. We have no water for the entire day in the apartment. There's a line to put gasoline in the car. Imagine, there were lines to put gasoline in your car in the country with the largest oil reserves on the planet. And it's not like there's no water in a tropical country or ability to do electricity with oil and gas. So, and then it was just very bad. It was lines for hours for food. It was blackouts, every other day. It was an entire week without water. It was the crime that rose tremendously during these years. so many things of our daily lives.
How did this come to pass? How did this incredibly wealthy land of opportunity turn into the place that you're talking about?
Do you know what's interesting? Venezuela is the only country that really went from being so free and so prosperous to so oppressed and poor in human history. Because think about this, the Soviet Union, right? The Soviet Union before was the Russian Empire, the poorest country in Europe. It was a terrible place, totalitarian, even though they were not communist. Nobody wanted to live in the Russian Empire. Cuba, yeah, Cuba was probably the better off, but they didn't elect Castro, right? China before Mao was a terrible place to live too. I mean, the Chinese, the Japanese occupied them. They were very poor, all farmers. Venezuela was a modern Western country. And then democratically turned into this, because when Chavez got elected, it's true that Venezuela wasn't perfect, but Venezuela was the richest country in Latin America. We had a lot of good things going for us. People were not starving. People could, lift themselves up, get an education, get a good job. People didn't leave Venezuela. That was unheard of people emigrating from Venezuela. People immigrated to Venezuela. And then it became very common. Chavez won, and he began putting price controls on things.
So Chavez was democratically elected.
Yeah, of course.
What was he promising? How did he get elected?
Well, what's interesting is that Chavez had a very similar story to other tyrants in that he actually tried to overthrow the government first. So he was a military guy. He was a lieutenant in the army, and he organized a coup in 1992. The coup failed, and Chavez went to prison. But the following president, after the one that Chavez tried to overthrow, pardoned Chavez out of prison. Because this other president, he wanted to do a deal with the leftist parties, and so that was the bargaining chip, pardon Chavez, to get their support. And he sold out the country for his political ambitions. He became president, this guy, he pardoned him. And then after him, Chavez won the election. And you say, how would people vote for somebody who had attempted a coup? I think that's a great question. It's not something I would have ever done had I had the chance. But I think it was because it's true that the political establishment in Venezuela before Chavez was corrupt. Nothing like what Chavez became, of course. It's child's play compared to what we have today. Today we have drug traffickers in power, not people who take bribes. But Chavez was a very charismatic man, and he promised that Venezuela was a rich country because of oil, and the reality, he said, was that the rich were rich because the poor were poor, and I'm going to redistribute everything. And he did. He won on that promise of redistribution, and after he got to power, he changed the constitution, he extended the presidential term, he allowed for re-election, which we didn't have before, and he centralized power away from the states into the presidency and implemented his socialist agenda. He did price controls to cover people's businesses. He printed money to pay for the welfare programs he created. And we got the same results that all the socialist countries get: inflation, shortages, crime.
It's remarkable, except that it's not. It's like you said, he just repeated these socialist policies, if you can call them policies. I mean, they're just... All right, so Daniel, fortunately your family got to leave, you got to leave. And I'm certain that as you're talking about someone charismatic who says that the poor are poor because the rich are rich and vice versa, it sounds a lot like a guy named Zhoran Mamdani, who is Mamdani, I always do that, who is running for mayor of New York. And I'm here in Minnesota, where we have an equally communistic person running for mayor of Minneapolis, Mohammed Fatah. What do you see here that sounds familiar to you? If anything, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how do you see it?
Well, number one, I know for a fact that Mamdani supports the same things that happen in Venezuela. I found a tweet of his from years ago saying that Venezuela was a great example of free and fair elections, and they should be observers around the world. Venezuela rigs the elections, okay? If you think Venezuela should be the example of how elections should be run, it's because you want to cheat in the elections. That's simple. And that's who Zhoran Mamdani is. Zhoran Mamdani is someone whose middle name, you know what his middle name is?
I don't.
Oh, it's Kwane. His parents named him after the socialist dictator of Ghana in Africa. I mean, this is a man who was raised by Marxists to be what he is today. Yeah. He is not out of a vacuum that he suddenly became this. No. People are usually not that way. Fateh, right? The same case, probably raised with resentment from the Somali refugees that were brought into Minnesota, which was a huge mistake in my opinion. There's a very different, it's a big difference. And I study immigration in part because there's a big difference in selection of immigrants who want to come to a place and people who are resettled by the government in a place, right? Which is the case with most refugees on the refugee program of the US and the United Nations. So, and it's the same case with Hanomar, right? That people who are unfortunately resentful against the country that welcomed them. And that's a really sad thing. So I think that this is all, what concerns me most is that their policies are the same as Venezuela. They want government control over the means of production, right? Yeah. Meaning, Mamdani doesn't believe in private property. He said it. I don't know about the guy in Minnesota, what he believes on that issue. But I do know that I am concerned because a lot of Americans, this is not an issue of them being immigrants or background of immigrants, or ethnicity. This is not the issue. The issue is that people vote for them. The issue is people support them. And the people who support them are people who are from here. So we have, unfortunately, a situation where people are being raised to hate America. Mm-hmm. And that's the entire debate that we had over the last couple of years about Israel and Palestine. It had nothing to do with Israel and Palestine. The only reason these people are in favor of Hamas is because they are against America. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I tell people all the time about the entire thing in Gaza because I ask them, how many people live in the Gaza Strip? And usually people don't know, it's about 2 million people. How many people have fled Venezuela? It's 9 million.
Wow.
How many people do you see protesting in the streets about the plight of Venezuelan refugees? Zero. Because they don't care. This is not about people suffering. This is about hating Israel, hating America. The West is
hating
bad.
The West, yeah.
Freedom is bad. Socialism is good. And if 9 million people fled Venezuela, the largest refugee crisis in the world, and if 100 million have been killed by socialist regimes throughout history, who cares? They were capitalist, evil people that deserve to die. That's where these Marxists come from.
It's really amazing to me. And seeing that you spent time at American University in Indiana, I'm wondering, I think we all see very clearly that in academia, this kind of point of view is perpetuated. And some of it, I think the ship is trying to be righted, but it feels as though this is so deep rooted that it's going to be really, really tough to turn the tide. How do you see it right now? As we sit here, we're in 2025, Daniel, and we've got a president who's very pro-America, and we've got some movements that look promising in terms of being pro-America, pro-West, but there are very, very loud and active voices on the left, and they seem to be overtaking the Democrat Party, and the Democrat Party as a whole isn't doing much to stop it. They don't seem to have a spine for this, to say, these are not our values. This is not what we stand for. They're sort of like giving the stage to these people. What in your mind gives you hope, and what's your biggest fear?
Well, how I see the situation on the academia front that you mentioned, I'm also completing my PhD in economics at Columbia. Columbia is very different from Indiana.
Wow. I mean, that's a study in contrast. You went to Indiana University and now you're at Columbia.
Yeah. And honestly, in Indiana, it was not bad, the faculty. The bad part is the staff that is non-faculty.
Administration.
The people who run the who approve student events. They're the people who censor then the conservative groups, all of this. I did see that happening. Like all the diversity infrastructure that should be totally abolished. I mean, these universities that then they're like, oh, we don't have money. We need federal subsidies. And then they're spending millions and millions in these diversity initiatives. I mean, there are racially discriminatory scholarships. There's so many problems. But it wasn't really from the faculty, at least in Indiana. In Colombia, there are faculty who are like this, including Zhoran Mamdani's father.
Yeah.
By the way, the Marxist. Mm-hmm. You know, Colombia, have you ever heard of the group Weather Underground?
Yes.
You know, they tried to bomb Columbia University. The son of two of those terrorists was Chesa Burin, who was the DA in San Francisco. Also worked for Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, by the way, Chesa. He wrote 2 books about it. And Chesa's mom or dad, one of the two, who was one of the bombers, when he left prison, he got hired by Columbia, the place he tried to bomb, to be a professor. So this is
again, that sounds a little bit like Hugo Chavez getting released. You know, it sounds really similar. Like, let's make a deal. I know you tried to bomb our university, but we want you on our side now.
Incredible, right? So that is the problem you see in the Ivy League and in the top universities of this country. But I think that the problem also reaches high schools. So I travel a lot to speak at high schools about Venezuela and how socialism destroyed it. And I remember very clearly one of the high schools I went to in North Carolina. This was in Burlington, North Carolina, which is a small city, okay, in a very red area. And the Burlington High School had a professor who had a picture of Che Guevara in the classroom that I saw myself. So would it be, you know, you say, well, teachers have free speech. Would it be appropriate for a teacher to have a picture of Mussolini or Hitler? Right?
No.
I don't think it would be. I think it would not be appropriate.
Right.
Unless it's like part of a class activity and it's to teach these people, but like as a glorification every day there, no. I'm sorry, that's not appropriate. So there are activists who are passing as teachers in a lot of America's high schools and colleges. And that is something that we need to deal with. And I'm not sure exactly how, except at least in the government portion, with better elected officials who make a better job. The school boards, you know, I think the conservative movement has really gotten put together on this. And then what gives me hope, though, is that America is not Venezuela in many ways. A lot of people tell you, you know, obviously what happened in Venezuela can happen here. It can. The question is whether it will. And what makes America different is that Americans are different. There is no country, and if you travel around the world, and I've been to many European countries, and there is no country in the world that has as great a share of its citizens who love freedom as America. And that is what gives me hope. There is no country with a Second Amendment. There is no country with such free speech and religious freedom protections. Look at what's happening in Britain, where people are to jail.
I was just there.
Did you see the man who was arrested for saying, I love bacon?
Yes.
Because it offended some people who were Muslim?
Yes.
I'm sorry, but even if it was offensive, you should have a right to say, I love bacon.
Exactly.
What is this? So that is happening in Europe today.
Yep.
So America is very different. That doesn't mean we're not going in that direction, but we're certainly going much slower.
Yeah, we shouldn't be fooled by that or comforted by that. Hey, it's why I do this, and it's why I like talking to people like you who know, who have experienced it, who have lived it. Let's get into just a little bit about the United States and Venezuela now, because certainly it seems to be that this current administration understands what Venezuela is all about, at least the leadership there, the government. What do you see happening between, do you see any hope for your former country, Venezuela, given what's going on here in America?
So, what the Trump administration has done is severalfold. They reinstated the sanctions that Biden had lifted. That is important to say. Biden had lifted the sanctions on the Maduro regime. Trump again imposed the oil sanctions. Trump increased the reward for the capture of Maduro to $50 million and also the capture of a host of other people. It's unfortunate during the Biden administration, a lot of things that we had started in the first administration that were really good were reversed. Not just the sanctions, but Trump had actually arrested several generals, and even the nephews of Maduro were in jail here in the US for drug trafficking, and Biden released them all. In exchange for Americans who were kidnapped in Venezuela, and that just gave an incentive to the Venezuelan regime to kidnap more Americans.
Exactly.
So imagine losing such high-value targets as the nephews of the dictator himself, generals, and it was not a good exchange, by the way. Anyway, so the Trump administration is trying to get back leverage. They're doing right now a military operation in the Caribbean.
Right.
Because the Maduro regime destroyed the oil industry of Venezuela. Venezuela exports very little oil now because it was all nationalized, right? But there is a private industry where they make a lot of money, and that is drug trafficking. I joke that if you really want to end drug trafficking, you just have to nationalize it. Let the government do it because they will fail. So that is a private industry, obviously. And that is the only source now of revenue to pay off the entire loyalty structure inside the country. And so if the Trump administration can reduce that inflow of income, that will make them, feel a lot of pressure.
The $50 million bounty for Maduro, that's a good number, and it's competitive with what some of these drug kingpins make. Do you think anyone's going to come through?
Well, the bounty, I think, is specific for like the arrest, not necessarily the killing.
Okay, right.
So
yeah, I guess I shouldn't have used the word bounty. Right.
That's more difficult. Killing would probably be easier than capturing alive. So but I don't know if that's enough, right? Because it's not enough to just remove Maduro and then somebody else comes in within the regime. You need to actually get them to leave. And I'm very skeptical that will happen because they have such an incentive to remain in power. And it's so difficult to break the narco-trafficking revenue structure. I mean, America has been trying to wage the war on drugs for decades, right?
Yes.
And of course I support the military operation. Of course I support reducing their income because it's the right thing to do, because I want them to make the least money possible, because they're evil people. Arrest all the people you can because they are poisoning Americans. But it's unlikely to lead to the change in the regime, I think.
How does that happen, do you think, if at all? How do you get regime change there?
Cuba has been in power since 1959, the Castros. And look where they are. And people are there, and they just became a parasitic economy living off remittances like Venezuela is becoming. The difference, people used to say in Venezuela, we cannot become like Cuba. And I said, it's true, because unlike Cuba, we're an island, which means we can walk away. We don't need to swim. Mm-hmm. That's the only difference. Venezuela has oil, which is why, by the way, the whole failure of socialism is so incredible, right? If socialism was going to work somewhere, it was going to be in the country where the oil gave you money literally for free from the ground.
Right.
And it didn't work in the country with the largest oil reserves in the planet. Imagine in other places.
I'm so glad that you're out talking to high schools. What's the reception like outside of the Burlington teacher?
No, the reception was great in that school too.
Okay. What kind, do you feel as though students are listening? Do they understand what's at stake?
I think for most of them, it's the first exposure to ever talking about the topic of socialism, which I think is a good thing. Because what's the goal? The goal is for them, when they get to college and they hear about socialism from people who want to implement that here, the first thing they think about is, I think of the Venezuelan immigrant who told me about this and how him and his family suffered because of it. I think about the North Korean that escaped. I think about the person from Cuba, the person from China, and other places. So I started an organization called the Dissident Project, We actually send immigrants from authoritarian countries to speak at high schools to tell our stories. This is not just me. And I also speak through YAF, Young Americans for Freedom, at the college level, but at some high schools too. And they have incredible resources for kids. So I'm not sure, if students are listening to us or parents or teachers, YAF.org and dissidentproject.org are great resources to talk about this and get something going.
What is your ultimate goal? You are studying, you work on your PhD in economics there at Columbia. And I do want to ask you one more question about Columbia before we wrap.
Yeah,
but what do you want to accomplish here in America?
Well, I want America to be a free and prosperous country and stay that way. That's number one. But what I would like to do is to be a really great influence on the conservative movement. I think that America is a really special place, and I think we need to regain the confidence about it being a special place and have more optimism about the future. I do fear that the conservative movement, just like the left, is veering into pessimism. And that is because of a lot of trends and things happening in the country. But if we veer into pessimism, nothing good comes out of pessimism ever. Nothing good, just like nothing good comes out of envy or resentment. And we need to be an optimistic country again, kind of in a similar way to what Reagan really inspired a lot of people in the 80s.
You know what? I'm going to take that to heart. I am going to take that to heart. I'm going to bring some more optimism into these podcasts, less pessimism. Finally, at Columbia, were you there on campus when some of these protests, these pro-Palestinian protests were going on? What was it like?
I was. I saw them. I saw the encampment. Ilhan Omar's daughter got arrested because she goes there, of course. Now I hear she's unemployed and she can't find a job. And I'm like, this is such a lie too, because your mom is a congresswoman. Of course you can find a job. You just don't want to.
Yeah.
Right? Let's be real. You have the connections.
Yeah, you do.
So maybe it's a laziness factor there. I think that what's happening in these campuses with the encampments was a real shame. I never thought that there was so much anti-Semitism in the United States. I had never encountered anything like that. And that really opened my eyes, and it was very sad. I also noticed, and if you see what happened at Columbia specifically, that this was not a student-driven thing. This is part of a foreign regime influence campaign to destabilize America. Yes, tell me. You were going to say something?
No, I want to emphasize what you just said, because I don't think enough people believe that. Believe that there are these foreign actors that do want to sow chaos and division in the United States. And that is because they know we have this military that can't be destroyed. They know our economy is second to none. And so the only way to destroy us, as everyone has always pretended, is from within. And that is the goal from these foreign actors.
Socialism will never win in America by the point of a gun barrel. They will win by votes, right? And so they understand that these other countries are like dictatorships, right? And so that's why they do all the things with bots on Twitter and on social media and on YouTube and the ads, and Russia does this and China does this and Cuba. In the encampments, you saw one of the organizers, his name was Manolo de los Santos. He's the president of an organization in Manhattan called the People's Forum. The People's Forum was exposed by the New York Times, by the way, as being a front paid for by the CCP. Okay? The CCP funds specifically an American sellout billionaire who lives in China, who funds this from China. He can't come here. He's funding actually evil stuff and criminal activity. And anyway, so Manolo has pictures, and he's personal friends with the dictator of Cuba and the dictator of Venezuela. And he was arrested at Columbia in the encampments. And because where do you think the money for the posters comes from, for the tents?
Exactly.
I mean, the students were not buying this. They were being provided this.
Right.
It's very different from, say, or perhaps there was also some element of this in the anti-Vietnam protests of the 60s, right? Where there were encampments, there were big protests in college campuses, including at Columbia. And in a way, yes, it's true that Russia tried to infiltrate, but now with the social media, with the movement of capital flows between countries, it's so much easier. And they're doing it in every area. They're doing it with the Hamas issue. They're doing it with the race issue, the Black Lives Matter protests. I mean, the founders of Black Lives Matter had a meeting and pictures and were very happy with Maduro, the dictator of Venezuela. This is not a coincidence.
No, it's not. It's a Marxist movement, and again, playing on people's feelings about something that was not the intention at all. It's scary, but you are uplifting me right now because you see it, you've lived it, you're talking about it, you're going across the country and engaging with young people. And I think that is insanely important. So yeah. I am so appreciative that you took time for us today. I'd love to have you back. There's so much to discuss.
And if you want me to close with something, I would say the best way to persuade someone is for them to understand that you love them too. And I mean this very sincerely, because the reason why you can't persuade a person who's very far on the left, in part, is because we're strangers. And I think that conservatives need to do a better job within our families. There are so many children of conservative parents who end up becoming far left, right? Or just disengaged and not, pessimistic, whatever. The best person to persuade them is their own family in a loving way, because that they have you have their best intentions at heart. So and they know that. So that's where I would encourage people to start in the small level, in individual, in your family. If we all did that, this country has no competition.
That is a great thought on which to finish, and I hope everyone takes that to heart as I am. Daniel, thank you so much. We have shown people, and it will be in the show notes as well, where they can reach you. We appreciate it, and I hope we can do it again.
Thank you.
I end every podcast by saying, be brave and do good, and that's what Daniel DiMartino is doing, and we appreciate it. See you next time. Hey, you can keep up with the Trump administration when you subscribe to the Trump Report. It's an email that brings you daily highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Subscribe today at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump.